Writing is life. Whether you get excited by the idea of writing or not so much, you really can't get through life without it. At least, not well. I'm gonna show you how non-fiction writing sneaks into your everyday routine and how to get really good at it. Start to get really interesting and really real life. Persuasive nonfiction. No matter what career path you choose, you're going to need to cultivate this skill. When you're competing against hundreds of other potential job candidates, you've got to find a way to convince a prospective employer that you're the right person for the job. But you're going to be an entrepreneur, you say. Be your own boss? Awesome. That doesn't mean you can give persuasive nonfiction writing a hard pass. In fact, if you're going to attract and retain customers, you'll need these skills even more. Persuasive nonfiction involves making fact-based arguments with the intention of swaying the reader or listener to agree with your position. You find this type of writing in cover letters and letters of recommendation, essays and opinion pieces, sales pitches and presentations, speeches, petitions, dissertations, and funding or sponsorship proposals. Now listen up. This is not about being a smart man, trying to fool people with faulty information for your own benefit. Remember, this is non-fiction, so facts are your friend. But how do you actually go about convincing people to agree with you? You could nag them until you wear them down, of course. But that's not the same as having them change their position to agree with your point of view. It's not an easy feat to change people's minds, but it can be done. Let's learn from some pros. People who have mastered the art of persuasion are often referred to as good orators, admired for their ability to speak eloquently in public, capture people's attention, and sway them to a new way of thinking.
I have a dream.
Civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, for instance, called out America's racist systems and helped solidify a powerful movement for racial equality. Activists have a vested interest in being good persuasive writers, and the passion that they have for their cause naturally comes through. Closer to home, Dr. Eric Williams, the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, was one of the Caribbean's great orators. Williams wrote many books, the most famous of which may well be his doctoral dissertation, Capitalism and Slavery, which argued that the decline of the transatlantic slave trade came about not because slave owners suddenly saw the error of their ways, but because of economics. Naturally, our former colonizers weren't too impressed because the concept went against their playbook and made them look bad, but the facts couldn't be disputed. Williams also made many memorable speeches that helped pave the way for the region's independence from Britain and carve a space for him to lead his own country through the post-independence era. One of his most stirring speeches happened on the eve of independence at a youth rally at the Queen's Park Oval.
You, in your schools, have, like the nation in general, only two alternatives. You learn to live together in peace, or you fight it out and destroy one another. The second alternative makes no sense and is sheer barbarism. The first alternative is civilized and is simple common sense. When you return to your classes after independence, remember therefore, each and every one of you, that you carry the future of Trinidad and Tobago in your school bags.
Persuasive writing doesn't always have to be that lofty, however. It can be something as simple as a tagline. This type of persuasive writing is a job that copywriters do at advertising agencies. Their words help position a product in consumers' minds and make them want to aspire to get it. or create a value system around a brand that makes people yearn to be part of it. Good persuasive writing puts forward a solid argument in a way that influences opinions. Your facts can be presented either through analytical or experiential evidence. Here's the thing though, facts alone are not enough to change people's minds. It's what's called confirmation bias. You believe a thing to such a degree that your whole identity can be built around it. That's the type of bias that the American Civil Rights Movement was up against. Here's the trick. The point of effective persuasive writing isn't to make the people you're trying to win over feel bad. Being overly judgmental will make them want to stick to their opinions even more, because humans hate to be wrong. As poet Shivani Ramlochan says in her op-ed, Old Statues, New Maps, where she examines whether or not to remove controversial statues like Columbus from public display,
To begin to think about dismantling statues of former empires is for many of us a new and tentative frontier. It is not likely an action of either protest or self-inquiry that Columbus's local devotees have ever imagined enacting. For them, the old map not only rules, but should always rule, no matter how much blood drenches it. What they perceive to be the obnoxious spectacle of contemporary activism deeply upsets them, particularly because it is a tacit attempt to begin the construction of a new map. And if the pro-Columbusites of so many dinner table discussions were to support such movements, it would implicitly reflect that their old systems are inherently flawed.
sometimes persuasive writers almost have to let readers feel like changing position was their idea. It's like your granny says, you'll catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. But don't take my word for it.
The idea is not so much to lecture at someone as it is to show them a multiplicity of ways of seeing. First, to be able to do this, you do need to know at least a little about what you're talking about. So I would strongly recommend researching the area you'll be writing into. It's important to speak from an informed position. The second thing I would say that's as important is to use language that is persuasive but not overblown. You're not here to throw the dictionary at someone. You're here to help convince them of multiple ways of seeing. Finally, I would say it is important to be yourself. Don't try to speak or write as if you were the ultimate expert on the topic. It's important to know you, as a writer, have so much more to know. And by the time you get to the end of the essay, you may have learned quite a few new things to add to your repertoire of knowledge.
Think you've got what it takes to win people over? Try writing a cover letter, speech, opinion piece, or even an ad, and see if it changes people's minds. A good way to practice honing these types of skills is by joining your school's debate team. If your school doesn't have one, write a letter that proves why it should. Go for it.